All right, we'll call public session into order. And we have nothing to announce out from closed session. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you all join us. All right, item 5.3, adoption of agenda. If I'm not seeing any objection to the adoption of the agenda,
Actually,
Trustee Martinson?
well, a community member asked if there was any chance that they could move up the oil production tax resolution, because there's several people here, and I guess they have to take the bus, so I don't know if that's an option.
What is that item? Do you,
13.3
13.3 to move it to where?
to the first action item. Or, I don't know, are we allowed to move action items up above or not? Yeah? So, I mean, or as early as possible in the agenda.
Okay, so I need to see a motion on that, to move that item?
Okay, so I move to move item 13.1
To where?
to after approval of the minutes. Sorry, 13.3 to after the approval of the minutes.
that'll work.
13.3 to 10 or to, that makes it 10.2, or does that make it 11.1?
I'm not sure how the function might work for you, but
Become,
we'll have two action item sections is what will happen.
I'd have to create a new action item.
You would.
Section, and so that would become 10.0, but it would take me a minute to rearrange.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. It looks like we are going to, motion passes, and we'll move that to wherever Catherine gets it.
Catherine, can you manually take it offline to address that when we get to that spot? Will it mess us up too badly?
Well, it'll change all your numbering.
Okay.
Let's see how fast I can
Okay.
get this done.
Okay. Well, we can go on to
Good.
other items. We've got a presentation, so that should give you a little time to rearrange everything.
Okay.
All right. So 6.1, I'm sorry. And the agenda is adopted with the exception of moving 13.3 to wherever it's going to end up.
It'll
Catherine
become
will keep us posted on
10.0.
that. Okay. And 6.1, see something, say something. And that's going to be presented by Amber. There she is. Welcome, Amber.
First off, thank you for having me today. I am very excited to come and present to you what some of our, sorry, can you all hear me? Okay. Present to you what some of our students came up with. So this originally started as a survey that came to our department from Mr. DeHaro, and it was a survey of students at the college after an armed intruder had entered a campus in another state. So the instructor came to our students, did a survey about campus safety. And we got the survey results forwarded to us good. It was very positive, but there were a couple things that our department could improve upon. And one of those things was getting the word out to the students about the college police and how to contact us. So we went back to our department and thought about this, and we've always gone by the see something, say something motto, and that was something produced by Department of Homeland Security to put out so people would know how to contact their local police departments. So I was like, okay, let's take the see something, say something motto and produce one here for Napa Valley College, personalize it for us. And I quickly found that digital design is not my specialty. So I thought I would use our resources here on the campus, and I contacted Rue Brugman and asked him, would you be interested? Do you think some of your students would be interested in designing this for our campus? He got back to me right away, put it out to some of the instructors, and Pamela Stalker emailed me. She said, let's treat this like a real-life situation. So we, the college police, were the, well, I guess we were the clients, sorry. We were the clients, and then the students were going to produce something for us. So the what we tried to get them to produce was a see something, say something logo, and then posters. So posters for us to adopt them a little bit to make sure they met all the college standards and had all of our contact information. And we were thrilled with what they came up with. So I wanted to come today and show these to you. I did invite the 3 students that were our finalists, and one of them is here today, Brian Lopez. You want to come on up here? And so he was one of our finalists, and I will show you his poster first. Oh.
Wow, that's cool.
See that first. Do you want to say something? Or?
Sure.
So I'll let Brian Lopez say.
Like Vanna.
There we go.
Hello, my name is Brian, and I hope you guys are all having a good day, and thank you for having me here. I think one of the hardest part of this poster was to try not to make it look violent but friendly for the student, and to make it pop out and make it look like already somewhat familiar to the student. So that's why I used that tornado that you usually see around the campus and on the website. And we had to use different color schemes, and we had to mess up the letters a little bit, make them look a little rotated or round. And it was a really fun project. It helped me a lot, and like she said, we treated it like a real life situation. And you guys were basically our clients, and we were producing something for you guys. And that was really fun. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I will pass around the other finalist here. Like I say, obviously, the people that are going to know how to get a hold of students the most are the students. So we are really happy with what they came up with. And our winning logo for the See Something, Say Something is this one. So. And then I'll go ahead and pass around. This was our final poster that we're going to take and alter it a little bit, but hopefully the next time you're on our campus, you will see this up and know how to contact us. So thank you.
Thank you, Amber.
All right, I will continue right along to my second item here. The second item I wanted to inform you all about is something that we're developing here on the campus called a care team. So you are all very aware of the violence that's out there. You see it in the media all the time about violence on campuses. And the college police currently does a lot to prevent this from happening on our campus now. One of the major things that we do is threat assessment. So currently, the college police is the only people on campus that do any sort of threat assessment. We, it was a little over a year ago, decided let's try and come up with a team to do this, so share the burden. Threat assessment is very time-consuming, and it helps to have people that aren't just police on the team. people from various backgrounds and interests, and so they can come together and do the START assessment. Up here, will you go to the other? Yeah. This kind of gives you an idea of what the care team is, and then we'll go to the graph. So we're going to have our care team, which is Campus Assessment, Response, and Education Team. You'll also hear them called BIT teams, Behavioral Intervention Teams, that type of thing. We're going to have it comprised of 4 members, so it'll be from law enforcement, counseling, also with a mental health background with that person, health services, and an administrator. The job of the care team is to take any sort of report of a behavior of concern and address that. So you're going to investigate it and determine if the person is in need of help themselves, are they a threat to themselves, or if they're a threat to the campus community. Once you do that and investigate it, then you move on and come up with a plan, a care plan of how we can help that person and help the campus community. And then the team would go forward and refer it to whatever department is necessary. So it would be student services or student affairs, human resources, office of instruction, and that type of thing. And on the other side, if you go up the chart, you can see that better, what the care team does, and then you've got the arrows of what our referrals would be. Now, also involved in this are all the support services. Our main goal is to help people and to keep our campus safe, and so we would need all the support services to be able to get them involved depending on what the person needs. Are there any questions about? No? Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amber. All right, we'll move on to 7.1 and public comment. At this time, the board will devote a total of up to 15 minutes for comments to the Board of Trustees regarding any subject not appearing as an agenda item for this meeting, but over which the board has jurisdiction. The public may ask the board to place an item related to the business of the district on future board agenda. No action or discussion will occur at this time on such item. Individuals will be limited to 5-minute presentations. The district will provide at least twice the allotted time to a member of the public who uses the service of a translator to ensure the same opportunity to directly address the board unless simultaneously translation equipment is used to allow the body to hear the translated public testimony simultaneously. At this time, the board chair will poll those in attendance regarding their intent to speak on any item on the agenda. Right now, I have, for this agenda item, I believe I just have Alex Schatz.
Thank you, Board Chair. My name is Alex Schatz. I'm a former president of the Associated Students of Napa Valley College a while back. I wanted to talk about a couple of things. The first thing I wanted to speak about is I listened to the last month's Board of Trustees meeting and specifically listened to the current President's report, President Amanzo's report, and I was really disturbed. He said that faculty were talking about restructuring the hiring committee to remove students, and I understand that this is still in the discussion phase, apparently, and I understand that mutual agreement's a thing, but at the same time, I don't understand why this type of a proposal would even be in discussion form, because it violates the essence of what shared governance is supposed to be about, which, we don't just follow the letter of the law when it comes to shared governance, but we also follow the spirit of the law. So I just, I hope that, I just wanted to express how I was disturbed when I heard that. The The other thing I want to speak on too, just in case I do have to take off before we get to the item, I'm really happy to see that the board is finally taking action on supporting an oil extraction tax. This is something that has had long-standing student support, and just I think it's really crucial for trustees and college leaders in general to just mobilize fiercely behind these type of progressive reforms, because if we don't do it, no one else will. So I'll leave it there, and thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to constituent group reports, and we'll start with 8.1 Academic Senate Report. Amanda Badgett, President.
Good evening, Board. First off, I would like to thank Trustees Baldini and Baker for joining us today at our Flex Day activity, which started bright and early this morning. And as a member of what is called the Leading from the Middle team, I, along with my colleague Michael John Vecchio, Diana Shabodi, Robin Warnell, and Jessica Erickson, we put together an exercise to engage the entire college community, well, faculty and staff, those who typically attend Flex Day, in conversations around data, but doing it in a I hope, more fun way. I'll let Trustee Baker, Christy had fun, so it's all good. In any case, the whole point being that as these mandates such as guided pathways are coming to colleges from Chancellor's office, rather than simply sort of receive these kinds of word on high, we are trying to make these mandates something that we as a local campus can be comfortable with. And the only way to do that is to be able to know who our students are. So we picked data points about our students, and it was a kind of, put questions out, have people guess, and there were prizes, and it was competitive. And in any case, it is the beginning of what will be an extended conversation about our students, and this will include student surveys and who our students are and how and what they come to us for and how they use our institution and how we can then build around that to make sure we are serving them in the most effective ways possible. So yes, Flex Day, which means classes start on Monday, and it also means I have been talking, and this is no exaggeration, I've been talking constantly since about 7:30 this morning, so I am going to stop my comments at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, 8.2 Administrative Confidential Senate Report. Ken Arnold, President.
Good evening. So, short report with regards to Administrative Confidential Senate, which is, it's still summer and we haven't met yet. So, Leadership Academy, however, starts on August 24th. I'm excited. We have up 20 people plus, and including Trustee Baker, who's going to be attending. I'm still looking to put a few more folks in there. It'll be, once again, a good class. We have a series of brown bags that we're going to do for leadership on various topics. And, we continue to grow that program. So there was a program that started a couple of years ago as a sort of an odd thought. We're at a full academy now. We've had 60, I think I counted 66 people who have attended Leadership Academy, and we're continuing to progress that. And you see the graduates of that academy who are leading from the middle and leading from where they are. So we're excited by that program, and so that's basically it for us. Yes.
When does it meet?
Right now it's on Friday mornings 9 to 11. And the first one's August 24th, and it's about every 2 weeks throughout the course of 8 meetings. And we explore, so it's always leadership from a broad concept. So it is leadership. The concept is you lead from where you are. Whether you are classified administrator or faculty, doesn't matter. It is the idea that you can approach lots of things in life from a leadership standpoint. And so that's what we explore.
Thank you, Ken. Associate Students of Napa Valley College, Rafael Manzo.
Good evening. Last July, it was the day after the July board meeting, actually, I was able to attend the Latino Leaders of Napa County Roundtable Luncheon. I feel like maybe I've heard about this event here and there, but never really gotten enough information about it. So I didn't really know what to expect. And the thing is that, so really my, what I'm trying to say is that I was sponsored to go there. I'd never been invited before, it's my understanding that they do these roundtable luncheons every month, once a month, maybe. And so the Napa, I'm told that the Napa Valley College Foundation was the one that sponsored me to go there. They made the offer to sponsor up to 2 students to attend the luncheon. And much of my team was busy at the time, but I knew that I was available and I was very interested. So I ended up being the only one who could take them up on the offer. But yeah, I just thought I'd put that out there, that that was a really neat, really interesting opportunity for me to go to that, because there's so many different leaders, Latino leaders, obviously, in the title, in attendance, all in one place. Many people from NVC. My vice president, Oscar DeHaro, was there. So I made sure to say thank you then, but I just want to report that out, that it was really, really nice to have that sponsorship so that I could attend that luncheon, and not having any previous understanding or expectations at all about what would be discussed there or anything. So thank you very much to those involved with the foundation or anyone else who had a part in it. It's really nice to be considered. My team, ASNVC, has just had their leadership retreat. It's how they begin. It's their orientation, their trainings. For the first time, we did it here on campus. We didn't go to an off-site campgrounds of a sort or retreat grounds. We just did it here on campus. We wanted to be here on the place, try it out on the site where we're going to be conducting our work. And we even had a workshop where we got to introduce ourselves to some of the vice presidents on campus and other department leaders and people who are in charge of the student services on campus, et cetera. And so it was really different. It was really different than going up into the woods and having all of our trainers drive up the mountain in Occidental, like up to meet us. Like, we're all just here at home. We're all here, and even in this very room, we had a few of our workshops. So that has just taken place, and whether or not those trainings are effective, for as far as training goes for our students, is yet to be seen. Only time will tell. And coming up for us is, of course, the first 2 days of school. And on those days is the Welcome Back tables, hosted by actually a collaboration of many different groups on campus that are involved in student affairs. It's the Welcome Back tables. Sure, it's the free donuts and coffee and snacks, et cetera, that help fuel us all. But it's a lot of resources. It's a lot of information that's held out in a one-on-one setting outdoors by the library or in front of Building 1300, the student affairs, student services building. And so ASNVC is sponsoring the snacks, of course, as always, and we'll be out there engaging students, recruiting for our team. We're a record small team this year, so we need to fill our vacancies. And that's basically my report for this meeting. Thank you.
Rafael, the Latino Leadership Luncheon last month was the only one I missed, but I know that a lot of individuals are also sponsoring students. It's a matter of get as many students as you can get there. Somebody will pay for it.
Well, I would still never go on my own and just expect someone to pay for me. I'm not that kind of person.
No.
So
but to encourage others to come there, I know that having students there is really an important piece of it.
They were very welcoming, yeah. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, Classified Association report, Jan Shard, who is not here, and Classified Senate report, Michael Rayford, also is not here. But who is here? Faculty Association report from Christy Iwamoto.
Good evening, everyone. Since I spoke to you last, I've been busy. I went to the CTA President's Conference, and I was gone there for a weekend where all the presidents of all the faculty associations up and down the state meet with each other and do workshops. I'm also the Women's Issues Director for Higher Ed in the state, so I did a minority conference that was the weekend right after the President's Conference, and I just came from a week-long conference at UCLA, the Summer Institute, CTA Summer Institute, where we have good teaching practices, professional development strands, negotiation strands. My vice president, Eileen Tejada, she did the advanced bargaining strand. I did the member benefits strand. UCLA was beautiful. They have great cafeterias there. Like, I haven't stopped talking about them. Imagine like a beautiful buffet, but like 4 of them, and you eat them every meal for a week. It was an awesome thing. Today I gave a flex presentation on kind of union basics, Union 101. I was really pleased to see we had a lot of faculty there, both full-time and part-time, which is always important, and a lot of new faculty, so that made me really happy. And I got the band back together. My executive board met. We just kind of met informally, talked about our direction for this semester, and we'll be having our first meeting very soon. And we just hit the ground running. It's like we never left. And that is my report. Thank you.
We realized, though, that people did because our board meetings are a little shorter than they've been in the past. So, okay, President's report. Napa Valley College Foundation report first. Ann Branch.
Good evening. So I forgot my notes, so I'm kind of gonna kind of look at this. We're just a couple $1,000s shy of achieving success with the Dr. Chris Burdett matching gift campaign. Bruce Ketchwin and I are working with a family who is, we've been meeting with them a couple times, leaving a major legacy to the college, probably 6 or 7 figures. And Raphael, I want to thank you for bringing up the Latin Leaders Luncheon, because we really think that's important to do. So every month that they have a luncheon, we are going to sponsor 1 or 2 students, and we've put the word out there with some of the professors that we're working with right now. If any of you know of anyone who would like to go or have an interest, let me know. They're usually on the 2nd Friday of every month. The foundation also has a new slate of officers. So Margot Perez-Brun is our new president. Ginny remains the vice president, and Laura Cortel, who's a new board member, is going to be secretary, and Bruce Ketchwin has stepped up again to be treasurer. We also have a new board member that I didn't put on here, David Cobble, and he and his family have moved up from Orange County, retired up here because their children live up here, and they're helping with grandchildren, but his son is a famous psalm, and he's in all the movies, and he's helping us with the VWT campaign, which we're making progress with. And that brings me to say thank you to Michael Baldini for meeting a couple months ago with Alex Ryan, who is now hosting a major event for us on November 7th, where we are going to showcase the VWT presentation to prominent community wine people. So we're really excited about that. That's pretty much what I have to say. So we're working on the 4th quarter. Thanks again to Bob. I'm sure he's so happy that we're not doing our financial stuff in accounting anymore. Yay, right? So we're excited about that too. So thank you. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Han.
Thank you.
Ron?
Yeah, thank you. Let's jump to cabinet, and Bob, I don't know whether you have something, but start over there.
Sure, just briefly, I had the opportunity to attend the annual conference of the National Association of College and University Business Officers, better known as NACUBO, in Long Beach on July 22nd through the 24th. Got to see some great presentations and bring back some good ideas for us to implement here at Napa Valley College. Today, we had the first meeting of our Planning and Budget Committee for the new academic year, and we have tentatively set a date for the final or adopted budget forum here on campus. It is tentatively set for Tuesday, September 4th at 3:30 in room 2220. So I'll confirm that with you once we have confirmation from all of the members, but tentatively set for Tuesday, September 4th. Be great if any board members could attend. Of course, you will see the budget at the September 13th board meeting, as well as the Audit and Finance Committee will be seeing a preview of the budget at their September 6th meeting. I will also, on Monday of next week, be attending the Chancellor's Office Budget Workshop in Sacramento. In facilities, work is underway to construct office space in the 1500 building, this building, for the Napa Valley College Foundation. You can see some of that work as you leave the boardroom. And then included in the budget that you'll be seeing in September, we'll have additional information on planned scheduled maintenance projects. So the funds have been earmarked, but what those projects will be and how we'll be using those funds to improve things on campus. And then finally, under institutional technology, we have been reviewing proposals for financing to start the infrastructure projects that were proposed here on campus to upgrade infrastructure. We have some opportunities to look at some long-term financing that would allow us to kickstart that project. Once those once we have more information, we'll be bringing that information to you at a future board meeting.
Quick question, Bob. So of the facilities and institutional technology, any of those come straight off the master plan, the facilities master plan?
Yes. So actually, you will see we've gone through our facilities master plan to look at the items that could be covered by scheduled maintenance. So that's what you'll see in the presentation on scheduled maintenance. And the infrastructure project that was a prominent part of the overall campus-wide projects that were part of that facilities master plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bob. And Charo, do you have anything tonight?
On Tuesday, August the 7th, the Office of Human Resources hosted the new employee orientation, and I want to once again just welcome back all faculty and welcome all new faculty and staff. Welcome to Napa Valley College and welcome back to faculty.
I would comment too that, you know, since Charles got here, has started working here, our onboarding process is, I think, more inclusive, and I got to speak along with a lot of other folks in the room too. I think it really helps faculty and staff get grounded. So it's just not, here's your room number and see ya. You know, so it helps navigate. And we're continuing that even more. So thank you. Eric? Yeah, please.
Yeah, and actually to pick up on that, we are in our welcome back mode right now, and on, oh boy, it feels like it was a few days ago, but that was yesterday. We also had our new faculty learning community, the first meeting of that, which is all of our year one faculty that are either in tenure track status or that are full-time leave replacements. So this is a year-long project that we do with all of our new faculty. Rather than tossing them into a committee with the academic senate or onto a district committee for the year, they serve on this learning community. And we do work with them every month where we present different topics. We work with them on navigating the college, and we provide a whole year's worth of professional development for them to make sure that they're really ready to function fully as members of the faculty here at Napa Valley College. So this is an additional thing that we do with our new faculty that's not typical at most colleges to do this. It's a wonderful thing that we do here. We're on, I think, year 11 right now of doing the new faculty learning community, and so very proud to have that going on this week as well. It is Flex Day today, so today and tomorrow, and again, thank you to the board members that were able to attend this morning. I think we had a fantastic kickoff to Flex Day and to the year today with the convocation with all staff that we had packed into the Paul Ash lobby at the Performing Arts Center. It was a tad unruly at times this morning trying to get everybody to listen to me when I was trying to herd the cats, but it was fantastic to see the entire campus community out together and working together and taking on some very interesting and important topics about the students that we serve and how they utilize our institution. A few things. So I was not with you last month. I was with a group of staff and faculty from Napa Valley College in Riverside, California. We missed the 120-degree day, I think, by about 3 days, so it was only about 100 degrees when we were down there. But we were at the annual Curriculum Institute, and so we were able to take a fairly good group, fairly good-sized group of staff and faculty down this year. It's a 4-day institute that's put on by the State Academic Senate, or the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges. About 700 attendees this year, doing workshops on everything related to curriculum, new developments, and most importantly for many of the attendees this year, also a lot of discussion about AB 705 and its implementation. Also proud to say, too, that we also had presenters from our college. Myself and Diana Shabodi presented several workshops during this institute. So a few other things about what we're up to in academic affairs right now. Like I said, we have the start of the fall term going on right now. We're monitoring enrollments closely. So I want to give the board an update on a couple of our numbers regarding that right now. Our enrollment's down slightly right now, about the same amount that we've been seeing for the last couple of years. So we appear to be on that same track right now. The really good data that I saw this morning, though, that I was very happy to see, is that our wait list is about half of what it was this time last year. So the classes that students need, they are getting in greater numbers right now than they were a year ago. So we've been really carefully monitoring our schedule and carefully monitoring our English classes, math classes, and other critical gateway courses for our students to ensure that we're offering enough of them to allow students to get into what they need to get into. So we're really proud to see that this morning, that our scheduling practices are starting to catch up with that. And we didn't have any major clusters of wait lists in any given area. It was spread out pretty evenly around the campus. With that said, though, we also have some programs that are bursting at the seams, that are overflowing, and where the faculty have taken on more students than perhaps we had intended originally. So we have a lot of faculty that are stepping up to let the students into those sections in many areas. We also wanted to let the board know two other things that we're working on this year in academic affairs. First off, we have two classes starting this next week that are new ventures for us here at the college. We worked carefully with the faculty and with the Faculty Association last year and with the Academic Senate to develop two pilot sections of courses that we are offering that have a 100-student class capacity on them. Typically, courses at our college cap out at about 50 students in our largest sections. And so we are running two experimental sections, two pilot sections, one of Psych 120, which is one of the highest, has one of the highest enrollment rates of any course here at the college outside of the required math and English courses, and also a History 120 course. So both of those are in social sciences, and so we have two stellar faculty members, Dr. Jeff Walksmuth and Dr. Jim McGowan, who are going to be leading those courses this semester, and we're going to see if this is something that's viable. Certainly from an enrollment standpoint, it appears to have been a huge success. They are full and with wait lists at this point. But we're going to be monitoring the student success rates in these courses very carefully over the coming semester to see how things go on that front. If this is something that we can do long-term here at the college, in limited fashion, if the pilot pans out in that way, this is something that can help us to more effectively utilize our space on campus. This really helps us out with utilization and efficiency. These are two sections that we're offering at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, Thursday morning, and a Monday, Wednesday morning, the most impacted time block of any time block pardon me, within our schedule. So we're really excited to see what goes on with that. And again, we have two stellar faculty members that are going to be leading the work in that area, and we're going to be monitoring to make sure that our students are getting what they need to be supported within those sections. And then finally, I just wanted to give the board a quick update on AB 705 compliance. I have brought a little bit about that at each of the last board meetings for the past few months. Again, just as a quick recap, this is an assembly bill that came from Jackie Irwin out of Ventura County. That is a major overhaul and reform of developmental or remedial education in math and English here at the college in the California Community College system, and will pretty drastically alter how students place into English and math at the community college come fall of 2019. So we do have all of the final guidance from the Chancellor's office and a frequently asked questions document and pretty much everything that we need to know to get to the work this next semester. So next week I'm convening a work group that's composed of faculty from both the math and the English department. We're reaching out to the counseling department. We have our testing center staff, deans from both of those areas, and we're going to put together our work plan for the year to determine what we need to do to make sure that the college is compliant with AB 705. But more important, as Amanda had mentioned earlier, with all of these mandates coming down from the state, that we're doing it in a way that meets the needs of our students here at Napa Valley College. So I'll keep the board updated on that as we go through the year and keep you informed on how we have complied with the new regulation and let you know how it's going as we go along. One last thing here tonight, I do want to make note, since this did happen between the last meeting and this meeting, I did want to acknowledge Rebecca Scott, who is not here in the room right now, and we are really praying that she is off on a beach somewhere with a cold drink in her hand. Rebecca did retire from the college. Her last date here on campus was July 31st. And so Rebecca, as many of you know, has been here with our campus for many years, and we made sure that we thanked her this morning because she has led our Flex Day for many, many, many years here at the college. So it was a different scene this morning to not have Rebecca up in front leading the troops, and she left me with the hoarse voice today instead of going home with it herself. I'll leave it at that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. We have with us tonight the esteemed Dean of Counseling, Howard Willis, on behalf of Oscar. Welcome, Howard.
Sure, thank you.
It's good to have you here.
Love the intro. Just to report out a few things on behalf of our Assistant Superintendent, Vice President of Student Affairs. As per his report, we'll be doing a joint Club Rush and Student Resource Fair with ASNVC and with Student Affairs, and actually it will culminate with Transfer Day. So the beginning of September, 4th, 5th, and 6th, we're going to have a lot of activity on campus. And the thought of that process, too, is to look at how we can not only coordinate services, but also keep in mind our facilities crew and the things that they have to do to move things back and forth. So we're looking at how we work with that process. Speaking of Transfer Day, it is our 44th annual Transfer Day. We'll have over 50 colleges and universities here, as well as local high schools that will be coming here, that we will assist in providing bus transportation for those students. And so we look forward to that event. Also, I'd like to share with the board that we have our San Francisco VA Student Veteran Health Program is back on campus. So on Wednesdays in the Veterans Resource Center, we have, excuse me, let me grab her name here. Let's see. Well, we'll have her name is, she's a licensed independent clinical social worker, and her name is Andrea Vanderlut. And so she will be here on Wednesdays providing services to our student veterans in the Veterans Resource Center. So we're happy to be able to offer that service again here on campus for our student veterans. Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question here? So we have a flyer that was also attached to the agenda, I think, about that, Howard.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this communication? Like, does this just go to, how widespread is this communication, and how are we getting it out there?
Sure. We'll definitely contact all of our student veterans. We have, we'll be posting around campus. So it'll be a proactive approach to share with student veterans the availability of this service, working with our Veterans Resource Center, so more direct contact to let them know that it's available.
So it's just for existing students?
Currently, yes.
Got it.
Similar
okay.
to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Doug sends his regards. He was unable to be here tonight, but there are the posted pieces here of the normal clipping service, and you're welcome to kind of peruse those or take a look. And the other attachment is the Office of Institutional Advancement. I think some folks had asked, and we're starting to share some kind of metrics on the number of click-throughs and other kinds of things. And they'll start to be a little stronger for you as we can get to compare month on month. So you'll be able to tell those. And also there's some kind of looks at some of the advertising and promotion we're doing. So that's there. I can't really address very much of this in terms of questions and answers tonight, but certainly feel free to email me or Catherine, and we'll focus those. On the President's report, a couple things. I would start to say that it's been a very busy summer, and I'll start kind of back a ways. Over the summer, especially May, June, and July, I met, as well as cabinet members and other leaders, with many of the people in the community, continuing the kind of speakers bureaus. There was task force meetings, many meetings out there, all the way from small groups, as I related, reading clubs, up to the large SIRS groups that Bob had talked to, and Rotaries with myself. Cabinet had a 2-day retreat. Thank you all for sacrificing a couple of days over summer. A deep time of kind of looking at the kind of things we talked about today at Convocation. Try to get a focus for the next 4 or 5 years and how we might address that. We had invitations out to a business roundtable. Business and industry leaders from all sectors really were there in the morning session for us and shared with us perceptions, questions, ideas, thought processes for the college and how we might better address the needs in the community. And then later that afternoon, we invited the educational communities in. So the superintendents from the Valley came in, and we were starting to ask them the kind of connection pieces we had. So at the end of the day, we came away with what I'll just affectionately call a really much more broad perspective of community input, and it was very worthwhile. That led to another summer event, which was last week, feels like a long time ago. I think that was last week. The Administrative Confidential Retreat. Was it this week? Oh, my goodness. Yeah. There you go. It was kind of like Amanda and Chrissy's report. It's just fast and furious. A really nice all-day retreat facilitated to do a little bit of outreach, communicate in between departments, a little bit of different kind of leading from the middle. What do middle managers need here to be effective? How can we better address that? We also addressed visioning some of the issues that the Administrative Confidential Group, and thank you, Ken, for helping to organize that, and helping dates. And we had it catered with out there at our friendly golf course just across the hall, and we held it at the Pelosi building. So it was a very good event. On Flex Day today, the convocation was an idea that I had last year, which is we should be talking to everyone on campus, all constituencies. And it was, as Eric said, it got a little frisky out there with 350 plus folks in the performing arts lobby, but it was very effective. And I think as a different perspective when you get faculty, administrators, staff, professional staff, technical, DAS employees, all in the same room. Very, very good. And I was very happy with it. Hats off and kudos to leading from the middle team. When Robin first presented this idea to me back, and I have this great idea for metrics, and it'll be so exciting. We're going to ask, and I said, well, alrighty then. But actually, it turned out to be a really interesting, wonderful way to start having a conversation about who is our student population, who are we serving, who should we serve in the future, and it was, you would have loved it. Of those of you who weren't there, watching anybody in any sector deeply diving into their passion and talking about what they do is a really wonderful thing. So I really appreciated it today. Welcome tables are, before we move on, tomorrow you're invited to, there's a luncheon tomorrow. board is invited to that luncheon. I believe it starts at 11. I'm going to say 11:15 because you'll be late. So 11:45, somewhere in there. 11:30 would probably work. And it's out in the PAC, I think, again, the Performing Arts Center. Help me if anybody, is it PAC lobby? Okay.
The schedule has been sent out to the board, if you can find it on there.
Okay, good. Welcome tables, as Raphael mentioned and other folks. The board, you may have signed up already, but maybe not, but you're certainly welcome to come that morning and, sit and talk with students coming in. It is, again, a really interesting time for you to get more in touch with them. On that front, I think the more welcoming we can be, there's a lot of focus, and I hear this from both sides of the house, both from student affairs and from academic affairs, that the customer service, the front end for students is incredibly important. So we're focusing on that. So please feel free to jump in and serve donuts, coffee, talk to students, walk them to a classroom. With that said, tomorrow I also am hosting with some other college leaders, thank you for doing that, a President's Breakfast for new faculty and staff. I think there's 40 folks who will be there. It's a time where again, it's a piece of onboarding where you really feel connected. And my goal is for people to feel more a sense of community as they begin their journey here with us, and answer those questions, feel solid. So we'll see how that goes. And educators will never turn down a free breakfast, so they're going to be here. That starts pretty early, but we'll see. There are a series of, Jeff and I have worked out on that broadcast, and it was part of something we talked about last year. I think Chief has had a radio interview series for maybe a couple years now. I don't know. At least. It was a short series, but it was all on disaster. Yeah. Yes, a mini series. And we had been talking about how, would that be a good outreach vehicle? We're focused now on doing radio interviews on topics of interest. This first one was kind of growing role of Napa Valley College was, I think, and it splashes on other things. We'll roll it out, but a good listen. And then there's selected appointments on there as we go. Outside of that, think that I am reminding you of three other things. There was a very nice magazine article in the South that Christy emailed me on this, say, I'm on board Southwest Airlines, and there's this great article all about the college, right? And it highlights the Silverados. I think it says baseball comes to Napa Valley or something, and it talks about the college, our outreach, our great culinary program. Merrick's name is in there 3 times. I called him and said, hey, what's up, And just a very good piece that highlights the college's community connection. August 24th is, in terms of the Silverados, is Napa Valley College Night. So we'll be throwing out baseballs, the first pitches. They asked 4 of us, and I think that's because they don't believe any one person can actually make it from the mound to the catchers. But we'll see how that goes. So you might put that on your calendars. And a little more pathos piece. There in the LLRC, there is now a really wonderful piece of art hanging in honor of Judy Walter Burke. And a group of anonymous donors had joined together, purchased a really nice piece of art that was really reminiscent of Judy's. I wasn't here then, but I think they're like little, what do you call those? Paper cranes. Paper cranes, and she had done that. So it's in the LLRC, and you might stroll by and take a look. It's fitting. I think she would be well pleased. So with that, that's my report.
Wow, that was a good report. You're
Well,
all over the place.
There you go. Thank you.
Do you? Did I see that you had that magazine with you?
I did.
Did everybody see that photograph? It's just amazing.
Yeah, I do too. I'll bring it back in, but it's I think the front cover is
It's
the baseball.
incredible, yeah, and it was
Yeah.
also, I saw it in a Twitter update.
Oh, good.
So it's all over the place. It was really nice. If anybody didn't
Excellent.
see it, check it out.
We'll post it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, take a flight. Yeah. Or not, and you have been, right?
You'll
Yeah.
see it then for sure, right?
Yeah.
All right. We'll go to approval of minutes, 10.1. I think there were some changes, but they're all before minutes? I thought we were
No,
moving
it's after
to
minutes.
after minutes.
But if you've got it before minutes.
If
and
you
you've
have it before
we
minutes,
could do
let's
it.
not mess with it.
Before minutes, okay, so we can do
Okay,
that?
so we are not going, should we all refresh our pages? Will it show up on board docs? Okay. Everybody refresh your board docs page so that you have the agenda reflected as amended. We have to refresh individually. Yeah, otherwise our voting and everything will be off. Okay. Action item, okay. So now we have action item 10.1, resolution on oil severance tax. And I have, so this would have been originally 13.3, and I have 4 speakers. I have, let's see. I'm going to call up first Jim Wilson.
Trustee, I just want to draw the attention of the board that the original resolution that was up was an older version, and so this is the new one that's more updated in case you haven't had a chance to look recently.
Jim Wilson, Napa. Thanks for moving this item up. I appreciate that. I do support the resolution for the oil severance tax to raise revenue for higher education. It's time to retire fossil fuels. I think everybody knows that. It's time, what we say in the climate business here is the time is probably getting close to past. And so we're in decade 0 for avoiding irreversible climate tipping points at this stage. I'm a climate educator. I'm with 350.org and Napa Climate Now. I teach in the high schools AP Environmental Science, AP Physics, and Biology in schools in Napa and American Canyon. We're very lucky to have some activist teachers, and the activist teachers know that it's important to have their students do stuff to address the environmental emergency we're in with the livability of the climate at stake. And I would like to just give a shout out for, say, New Tech High. This year in particular, we had a group of students who took on biogenic greenhouse gases. Biogenic greenhouse gases are relevant to what we're talking about here today because forests are the best negative emissions technology we have. And these kids pose the question, are we losing more than we're gaining? And so what we're talking about is the loss of forests globally and whether that's any more legit in a day and age when emissions continue to go up. So the United Nations is talking about peaking out emissions. Peak emissions have already occurred in California. That's a good thing. Globally, they're still going up, and we have until 2020 to get those emissions to level out and to go down. Last Tuesday, the department heads were giving their reports to the Board of Supervisors, and Barry Bierman got up. Barry Bierman is the fire chief for Napa County, and his report was on the fires up at Lake Berryessa. Turns out those fires were started by a guy trying to clear around his house, put his chainsaw down, and the vegetation in front of his house ignited. Before you know it, 8 houses were lost. Barry said something I'll never forget. He told the board that he had never seen fires like this, and that they were unprecedented. And he came back later in answer to a question by one of the board members and repeated that with some urgency, unprecedented. And so I think what we're seeing, what I see, is that folks are beginning to say something. They see something and they say something. We're seeing the signs. And so we're desperately in need of some breakthroughs. We need climate leadership. Incremental change is no longer going to cut it for the kids. In the classrooms, I like to talk about what's up next before the United Nations. This year we have the 6th assessment reports coming through. They come through every 4 or 5 years. We don't have metrics that will stabilize the climate currently. We're still using Kyoto metrics. We're talking about emissions, CO2 primarily, and we're talking about the management and reduction of emissions. What we're going to see this year and next is a change in the way we deal with climate stabilization, and that will be with radiative forcing. We're going to be talking about the heat, the intractable problem of CO2 and other greenhouse gas heat trapping gases. The problem is how to blow them back out into space. We don't know how to do that. And the new metric, instead of CO2 ppm, 350 is about 350 ppm CO2. That's the safe level of carbon dioxide in this saturated greenhouse gas atmosphere. We'll be talking about watts per meter squared. Watts per meter squared are what are driving record-breaking heat every year. Last year, for example, was the 3rd hottest year on record, but it was the hottest year on record for a non-Nino, El Nino year. So we're breaking these records all the time. When we have fires, we have the black carbon going up. Mr. Bierman's talking about the problem of black carbon trapping more heat. And in the West, over half of the additional aridity and dryness in ground fuel is due to that type of heat. The carbon pulls all the moisture out of the air. Ultimately, we need to stop burning fossil fuels. We need to do it post-haste. We need climate leadership. The kids are looking to us for that. Let's give them some help however we can, and then educate them on climate responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Alex Shantz.
Thank you, Board Chair. As I mentioned during public comment, I'm really happy to see this resolution on the agenda as an action item. Again, the oil extraction tax is something that has had long-standing student support. Just some ideas I'm throwing out there in terms of next steps after you hopefully support this. This is a chance to take leadership on an issue, find allies and other school boards across Napa County that are willing to support this resolution or something similar, and then pitch it to State Assembly Person Aguila Curry or Bill Dodd. I'm sure he'd love to sponsor something like this. And anyways, just some thoughts, but this is a chance to take leadership on a common sense issue. California is the only oil producing state in the nation that doesn't have this. Like, come on. Anyways, thank you so much.
Thank you. Gary Orton.
Madam Chair, honorable trustees, my name is Gary Orton. I live in Napa. Mr. Arnold reported on advice given to students at a leadership event. And to quote him, "You can do many things from a leadership role." That was no exaggeration. He was absolutely correct. It's no exaggeration also that we're living in a new Gilded Age with its massive wealth and income disparity. And actually, similar to the old Gilded Age, we have a lack of conservation efforts going on here. This has resulted not because of a mistake. It's resulted because of policies. And these policies were adopted over the last 20, 30 years, knowing full well it was going to cut back on resources available for public services, like education. Those policies, when they adopted them, they knew exactly what was going to happen. So it's no exaggeration that you can do many things from your leadership role. And one is to stand up for your constituents. The resolution is a beginning step to do that, to let your constituents know they're suffering from the policies that have been adopted. Now's the chance to do something, and if not, when? Are you going to wait for the oil companies to propose something? Where's your own proposal? There's a proposal in front of you tonight, and I urge you to adopt the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Kishinev.
Hello, Jason Kishinev, now candidate for City Council in American Canyon. I also would like to speak in support of this. I'll try to keep it short. Busted pipelines, fracking, spills, drilling, all these things. The oil extraction is destroying our planet. The cure to this is education. It's a perfect win-win situation, if you ask me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is this for this one? Okay.
Good evening, James Hinton. I'll just keep it real brief and dogpile on the other comments and just say that I think this is a much healthier economic alternative to these college bond tax proposals.
Thank you. Okay, so let's get a motion, and before we have any discussion, and I assume.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, so that was Baker made the motion and Baldini second. All right. Since you asked for this on the agenda, do you want to start?
Yeah, I kind of concur with the last comment that I think, we've seen that local communities are feeling the burden of stagnant wages and rising costs, including more and more bonds being put on them. And this is a way to go after state funding. I think that should be a big focus, is going after more state monies. As it says in the resolution, California is the 5th largest economy in the world, yet we're 41st in public education spending. So one of the options, there's others, and recently the board passed a resolution to support Prop 13 reform, which actually has gathered enough signatures it will be on the 2020 ballot. This is another way to bring in state funding by taxing oil companies on the production of extraction of gas, or oil, as well, both. Usually it's oil and gas. So, as people had mentioned, we're the only major oil-producing state in the country that doesn't do this. So it just seems like common sense and something we should do on behalf of students.
Can I just ask you a couple of questions? So let's say we pass a resolution tonight.
Right.
What are the steps? Where do you think it would go and in what timeline?
Yeah, so I think we can't go out and lobby for something that the board hasn't expressed support for. So my thinking is that once the board expresses support, we could get other school boards to pass similar resolutions, whether it's NBUSD or NCOE or both, but also then we can take that to our local legislators and ask them to sponsor a bill.
Who is we? I'd like to,
board.
All I'm trying to get
Yeah,
at, because
once the board expresses support, any one of us could do that. So we can't really go out on our own and say the board, supports this, but once the board has acted, any one of us could go to a legislator and try to lobby them to sponsor a bill.
Okay. So that's just where I was trying to understand is,
right.
Should we pass this evening?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What happens, what would be the organized step or the organized campaign to do
Right.
anything with this, being, who would have the bandwidth to run with this? Where would it go from there?
Well, first,
or are we
yeah.
going to pass something that doesn't have any legs to it, you know?
Right. It says at the end that the first step is just send it to them. So that's part of the resolution, to mail it to them. But then, you know, I have an interest in this, so I would have an interest in meeting with them. If others are interested, we can do it together. So, but I think, again, the first step is taking a position on it.
But you don't see, just one last question, so then we can kind of deliberate on it. You don't see it trying to get on a ballot. What's your timeline, 2020? What do you think is possible?
So I wasn't thinking of this as for a ballot. I was thinking of it to get a legislator to carry the bill, similar to what Noreen Evans did in 2014. See if maybe the climate's changed now. It's 2018. We are having all these wildfires. People are more aware. Maybe there's the political will now to push it forward.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. All right. Comments?
I agree that we need to reduce our usage on fossil fuel, but I feel like part of it, every time this severance tax has been proposed, not once did the proposal call for a reduction in any other taxes. It's going to be another increase, which I get. But who's going to pay the taxes? It's going to be passed on. It's going to be applied against the income subject to a California and federal corporate income tax. Most of it's going to be paid in the form of higher petroleum prices, notably gasoline, which it's largely a regressive tax. I get the argument and I support it. I don't know if I feel like a resolution is no different than any one of us as a trustee and a leader going to our legislators and pitching it. But
do you want me to respond to that, or because you're looking at me?
I'm just
no. Let's
Okay.
get everybody's thoughts first. So who was next, Raphael?
Yeah, I just had a couple of comments, kind of on the same line as Kyle. That I'm not necessarily against this, but what ultimately is going to happen? It's that we tax them and they charge us more, and who's affected by higher gasoline prices and taxes? Well, it's low-income people, some of the ones that we're apparently trying to help. And just a question about why haven't we seen any support for something like this from other districts or anybody? In your research, did you find anything? Why everybody is so quiet about it?
I don't know. So I guess I am. So first of all, unfortunately, Noreen Evans could come a couple meetings ago, but it wasn't put on the agenda, and she couldn't come tonight. But she said that is one of the arguments, but that it's not a valid argument, that it will lead to increases in gas prices. Again, every other major oil producing state in the country has already done this, and it hasn't led to higher gas prices. That's usually the argument that's used for anything, that it's the cost of the regulation is going to be passed on to the consumer, and it's a scare tactic, and they've done this enough to show that doesn't happen. As far as what other people have done, I don't know. I'm not really concerned about that. I think that, again, we can be leaders, even if maybe others have done it, maybe they haven't, but to me that's irrelevant. I think it's the right thing to do, and that we can exercise a leadership role and take the lead.
Okay.
Unless someone else has.
Let's let everybody weigh in.
I understand it. I get it. I'm looking at every church I drive by, the conga line of cars going to drop their students off. They're for the most part SUVs. We've taken gas hikes, and that's affecting our students. It's affecting our employees. It's affecting the world. Yes, I understand fossil fuels and the potential devastation and harm. California, and I'm looking at, okay, well, why not put the tax someplace else on a growth industry like cannabis or like solar panels or something? So you have a declining base. It's like putting a tax on cigarettes. Why haven't we eliminated smoking on this campus? But you get back to oil severance. So California oil production since 1985 has dropped 56%. It's dying off. One, it's difficult to very expensive here in California. We're dealing with heavy crude, which takes something to move it, and that's steam. Fluor Corporation with Texaco and Southern California Electric put in a 300 megawatt cogeneration facility that burns waste and sends and produces steam and sends the electricity to Southern California, to Los Angeles, over, like I said, 300 megawatts, which is enough to power between 50 and 100,000 homes. So this steam that has to be pushed out of the ground, this is not, it's a different geology here in California. We're dealing with plate tectonics, not the sort of oil that's much less expensive to pull out of the ground in the other 5 states that lead us in oil production. So my research is on the economics. It makes sense for California producers at $100 a barrel. And at $100 a barrel, that's putting the economy into slow growth or no growth. And we're probably looking at, with the Iranian thing, probably about 90 gallons. I go back to, again, to just ask. If you look at the largest area, the largest fields in California, that's in the San Joaquin Valley. And the oil, where is it? It's offshore at 11,000 feet deep on average. So many of those places are inaccessible, which makes oil production here very expensive. So again, over the years, as we make electric cars affordable, and there's where students are driving, or students or anybody has an alternative to the way they get to work right now, other than driving a vehicle, it's going to be passed through to the consumers, I believe. So if we look at the whole picture, we look at didn't we just hear a presentation from one of our students about how they got a job with Shell Oil Company on machine tool technology? Or welders, where are they going? And you expand that to the entire state, making it more difficult to extract fossil fuels, yes, is a good thing, but on the other side, it could affect the economy. And now looking at Chevron, one of the principal owners of oil fields here in California, particularly in the San Joaquin Valley, they have given millions of dollars to students, particularly support of STEM programs at the high school and college level. As far as fires, on August 7th, a couple days ago, they donated $500,000 to fire relief funds. They did that in December as well. So I know no one that works at Chevron, but I would just go ask them and say, hey, we've got a program here, and they're advertising right on their website about solutions to challenges they have. They don't want to be an oil company, they want to be an energy company. And I know that's wordsmithing. But you look at, why not just reach across the aisle and say, hey, this is our challenge here. If it's supporting education in this state, why not reach across the aisle to them and say, we've got this challenge here. We have this need for chemistry buildings or what have you. But just ask the question before you say, okay, we're going to go beat you with a mole because then it's an emotional issue. It's big, bad oil companies, but we haven't really opened the door to them and said, hey, we want to educate your workforce. So to me, it's a tough one. I'm sorry to go on and on, but it's more impactful than what we think. And until we understand the solutions, until we open the door and just ask, it may not be the time to do this.
Thank you. Hussefa, do you have some input on this?
Well, I'm just listening at the moment to all the trustees, but from what I heard from everyone, there are of course pros and cons, and you have to take them into account. You just have to see whether the pros are whether this is affecting students and the cons are less than the pros. And I just think that, when I was reading this and I was listening to the public speakers, I just felt that yes, this might have something good to do for the students, since the statistics say that we are 41st in the nation in public education, it might help. But again, then you have these cons. So we just got to work that out. Yeah.
Thank you. Trustee Baker.
Well, after listening to Trustee Baldini, I'm feeling woefully unprepared. I honestly hadn't even considered the potential of this being something that would deter us away from using fossil fuels. But if that is a potential, then I would definitely support that. From the education standpoint, I think it makes a lot of sense. We simply don't have sufficient funding for education in this state. And if this is a way that we can get it that has been successful in other states, then I think I think somebody said it was a no-brainer, and I agree.
Okay, the only other person besides my comment is Trustee Segura.
And to what you just mentioned, I'm wondering if any research has been done as to the financial impact that this would do. Would it really help the student? And if the cost is going to be passed to people who drive constantly to work because they can't afford any other mode of transportation, what is the trade-off? Or we will get educated students, I agree, and that's what we're here for. Mm-hmm. But then,
so as I said,
if their parents can't afford to send them to school, then I'm just wondering if there's been any numbers run.
As I said before,
the income
it's
and
been
the
done.
expense.
Yeah, it's been done. It doesn't raise gas prices.
Okay.
Do we see any numbers? Do we get any information on that, or do we just assume, or do we?
Those are all good questions. So I'd like to comment too. I drive an electric vehicle, so it doesn't affect me as far as the results of it all. But and I would be for this, for something like this. I think Trustee Baldini's point is really well said in Just Ask. Maybe there is some funding that we can request that might come to us as well. But here's my biggest concern. Does anybody up here know the name Josh Newman? Okay. Senator Josh Newman from down in Southern California was recalled for this gas tax, this last gas tax that passed. And it's the now Prop 6, the repeal of Prop 6, which is organized ballot measure that is trying to now take away that gas tax. My point to this is that finding somebody to carry this after Josh Newman was recalled is going to be very, very difficult. I like the idea of taking leadership on something and running with it and getting Napa Valley College's name on it. I think that would be great for us to take the lead on something like this. But I would say what I would like is if we gain that support from wherever that may come from, to know that there could possibly be some support out there. And that's typically when you go after legislation, is to sit down with people and find out if that's there. Find out if it's there. That doesn't mean we're not taking leadership on it, but that means then we come to the board and we feel that we can snowball this thing and make it happen because we know that there is some positive support behind it. My concern is the timing on it, and I was very involved in Josh Newman's recall and trying to help him, and nothing saved him from being recalled from this gas tax. So that's, my issue is timing and where do we go with it, and will we get any support if we do? Because what I wouldn't want to see us do is hang our hat on something that, doesn't have at least, I'll watch my language, but doesn't have a chance in going anywhere. So that's just my thought on it. So Kyle had his hand up a little while ago.
A couple other points. So I think it was today or yesterday, the current administration has already started the process in opening up fracking and more offshore drilling in California. And that kind of ties into these next 2 points. It's not that we lack oil and gas here. It's far from it. We all but prohibit drilling in the Golden State. Drilling offshore, we have a huge oil and natural gas reserves. It's unknown how much for sure, as the oil industry has little incentive to find out, as production is all but banned. Of the proven oil reserves, and this is just some of the stuff that I've researched, aggressive exploration and fracking have raised the proven Texas oil reserves by 145% from 2009 to 2014, while California's reserves have remained stagnant during that period. So when it comes to oil production, Texas tripled its oil production from 2010 through 2015. California production changed not at all. So part of my fear is that this might increase oil drilling, especially with the current administration. And back to the fact that Californians pay a very large oil tax already in the form of gas taxes paid at the pump. In November 2016, the total average of California gas tax at the pump was 56.6 cents per gallon. Texas was 38.4 cents. Moreover, California charges a cap and trade fee that's estimated to be 10 to 12 cents a gallon. Texas has no such tax. So I support the idea, I like it, but I think there's a lot more that needs to be done to have effective leadership and push this forward.
Okay, so
Trustee Martinson.
As far as the research that came out of Noreen Evans' office, because she's the one that put this bill forward in 2014, and again, it's not any mystery what would happen. Every other state in the country's done this, and according to her office, and based on the research, it did not raise gas prices. Furthermore, Trustee Baldini, you said, why don't we tax an emerging industry like solar? Why would we want to discourage solar? The reason this is a win-win, because it would raise money for education and discourage something that's negative for the environment. So it's a win for the students and it's a win for the environment. And as far as going out and lobbying, it's very hard to go out and lobby politicians when we ourselves can't even take a position on it. How can we convince somebody else to have the political courage to move forward with a bill when we haven't even acted on it as a board and expressed our support?
First, I don't really understand the leap between if we have a tax on oil extraction that would make them not come here, or that they would come here. I didn't understand what you said. But I will say maybe Texas has increased their oil production, but they've also increased their earthquakes.
Oklahoma.
Yes. I can argue back and forth, and we can all argue about whether this would be passed on to consumers, or whether or not this would increase the oil industry or whatever. I think that at the end of the day, though, we're an education board and we should be caring about education. And if this is something that supports education, the rest of this is something that Sacramento can deal with. What we're doing here is saying, or would be doing with this, is saying that we would support passing on the cost of education to big oil and in this state, which has been successful in other states.
All right, should we vote? All right, and we had a motion and a second. All right, so we're voting electronic? Yes. All right.
I see that we have 3 in favor, 3 against, and 1 abstain.
What are the votes, please?
Sorry?
What are the votes?
Baker, yes. Martinson, yes. Rios, yes. Baldini, no. Segura, no. Iverson, no. Mancuso, abstain. Student trustee has voted an advisory vote of yes, but that doesn't count.
So,
Clearly more research needs to be done.
what's that? Right, right. So the motion didn't pass. And we'll move on. Okay. All right, let's approve minutes. Yes, we're back to minutes. So I think there were some changes already made, and seeing no objection to the minutes as they are.
Yeah, so there was one last-minute change. It's in red.
It was already addressed, though?
I'll just show you. Yeah, I just want to make sure the board saw it.
Oh, okay. Yes, that was in the, we had that earlier. Yeah. All right, so seeing no further objections or corrections, minutes are approved. All right, 12.1, bond feasibility and community engagement update, but I think, no, never mind. I thought I had something on that. All right, Ron?
Sure. Bob and I are gonna, and we can walk over there maybe. Yeah, it'd be easier than you looking at us up here. Well, thank you. More tax conversation, right? We have more tax conversation. A couple things from the request, the agenda request from last time was to spend a little time, and I don't think that we need to spend a lot actually on this because it's fairly clear, but we're prepared to answer a few questions and go through a few items. So my thinking is to spend a little time on a PowerPoint, the community communications, a little bit on the Godby research instrument that's there. Talk a little bit about the rationale that I think we have done a little bit tonight, and also there have been other issues, and then start talking about how we're working through our next steps, what the proper language should be, how the board might frame this or should see it, and how the community is talking about it. So why don't we just start with the PowerPoint on community? It'd be affectionately called Carolese. And we can just go through this really quickly. You have seen this in many ways, and we'll go through. But this is really the title here really is important, that the conversation, as I have said repeatedly over the last many months, with the community continues and has continued since really 2014 and before. And when we started looking at the lessons learned, reach out, listen, communicate with the community, get a good sense of where the community is. We have been addressing those as we've been moving along. What this document, you might just cruise through here, unless I can do it up here, I'm not sure. What this document really does is start to outline, and you've seen this before, the vision statement that the college has. It also outlines the, just keep rolling down, I think. I'm sorry, Catherine. The priorities in the communications plan. Keep going. And again, you have seen this. And then we got to this campus feedback and alignment of priorities. These were priorities that flowed out of 2014 and then updates in 15, 16, 17 as we started talking to our constituents, both on and off campus. They rolled in. I don't think there's anything up here that surprised people. They recognized we needed more classrooms and to modernize the science labs, things that have been out there. And so we really were looking for the coherence. How did our internal stakeholders feel about this set of priorities, and the coherence of our internal stakeholders with the existing priorities is pretty high, is really what this says. They feel we're heading towards the right stuff internally. So if you'll roll down a little bit. Then we did more community feedback pieces. So we went back out, and Bob's going to talk about kind of the planning, to talk quickly about these priorities and kind of check with the community at large in surveys, but surveys that we had done. How do you feel about these? Are there other things that we're missing? They came through pretty much on track. We use a different system here. So the coherence factors on the right just really say out of 1 to 5 stars. They all came in about the same. People recognized that, yeah, we need these. There were no surprises really on this. Then we went to a Speakers Bureau engagement. What's important about this, because I think we had talked so long and deep about, the possibility of this feasibility study that we're going out for in 18. There's 2 ways you could look at this, and we started working on it, which is, aren't you going out to make presentations in the community just on behalf of the bond so you can raise that awareness? Well, certainly we wanted to raise awareness and find out what people were thinking about in the communities. But what we found out during that whole process in 2 years is people loved to hear from the college. They were very interested, and they were even more interested when we weren't talking direct nexus. I'm here today to talk to you about supporting a bond. We never had that conversation out there. We talked about the needs being, a qualitative matchup. So we're continuing on our Speakers Bureau. In fact, we're doubling down even more, which is a good thing. We have really done most of the large groups. We'll go back again, but now we're going Tier 2 and Tier 3 and Tier 4, which is any group of 2 or more we are meeting with to get input. So there's a lot more that goes on. We expect to do another 50 or 100 presentations this year, and every year. Shouldn't a college be doing that anyway? Is really the piece, right? And those presentations may take different forms, like the task force that we had, or the business leaders roundtables. The Latino roundtable that Rafael talked about, we're connecting closely with them, talking with that leadership, finding out what that group wants. So this is a continuation. The second one I want you to take a look at.
Can I just add real quick?
Yes, please.
That Maria Vilgomez and Lissa Gibbs did a wonderful presentation at the Latino Leadership Luncheon.
Yeah, and I think to that, we've talked about the stratification of the valley. I mean, this is a valley with upper and a valley with lower income levels. And, and people who have to drive in and not drive here. A lot of people are concerned and express opinions but don't live here as voters. A lot of people are here and are concerned but don't vote. So trying to ferret that all out to figure out what really, are we doing the right thing as a college? How should we address things was really, what we did, and we're continuing on that. The Godby Research Instrument was intended, we went out a year plus ago, about a year ago, on a survey instrument that you all saw, and it was, if you will, a pretest to see, what is the temperature of the community, and it came back with a couple different things. First of all, we came in with a coherence factor, which is we're really looking for what people valued in the community, and in this survey that we just did, it reconfirmed those same things. So if you flash down a little bit, I don't want to go too much into this because it just kind of goes over what you know, but these things again played very high. They came out. Modernize classrooms, improve veteran services. Nothing has really changed there. And that was not a surprise to me, although you never know. It'd be interesting after this big firestorm is hitting, and the kind of conversation we're having tonight in all of California, whether attitudes change again next year or the following year about buildings or building codes, or we'll have to see. That's to say that we don't live in a vacuum. But really what this second survey showed was that people generally felt the same in terms of their support for the kind of things we would do. If you go down to a little farther, past this, survey points to key information that respondents are seeking. You go down here a little more, I'm sorry. These things always track good on a survey, every penny, right? People want to make sure that there's scrutiny. They don't want wasted dollars. The measure requires citizens' oversight. These all play very high. These ones really mean that they rose to the surface. None of the money can be used for, salaries. The measure will expand veterans, all of the same thing. Where the metric that I think people were interested in at least a bit was, what is the measure of confidence here, and let me see if I can get it real fast here. The margin of error. So margin of error in this survey was about 4. And when I talked with the consultants, we're about in the same place we were. So bringing forward, at best, something that could either pass or fail but was dicey, it didn't make sense to me based on the consultant's information and this huge, unbelievable wheelbarrow full of national, local, state issues. We don't have a calm economy. We don't have a general economic outlook. Depending on who you ask, people will say we're getting ready to go into a downturn, or this is going to last forever. In speaking with business leaders and community leaders throughout this county, people are nervous. They're nervous. I mean, the housing piece is going up, up, up. They're not sure if we're at the top or it's going to go farther. When I spoke with CEOs in hospitality, winery, everything else, they feel good about what's going on here, but uneasy about the future. So generally speaking, in my conversations with those folks, there was no overarching mandate, and I could tell that although they valued the things we were doing, there was still a gap between the college's needs and the conversation that they were having, which was taxes, and the conversation that we've been having, which is student success and value, were not yet matched. So it makes sense. We have work to, in my view, in my decision making, we have work to do to still continue our deep conversations with the community until there's a real meeting of the minds, if you will. And people are starting to nod and say it's time. There was not one person out there that I spoke with who didn't acknowledge that we need these things. They're just hesitant at the moment to go for a new tax of any kind. And much of the debate we had tonight, in a microcosm, happens at the upper level. So let me move on just a little bit and talk about, and maybe hand this off. This is good for this, Catherine, and hand it off. I think what's important for you as a board is, why now? So my recommendation, in terms of moving forward, was because we were in July, is not to bring this to an action item that I was not recommending to you. So it would have been an odd action item. We had talked the entire time about the entire year and a half about just this event. I would either bring to you something that I recommended and if we felt was supported or not. I don't bring something that you're not going to vote or I'm expecting you to vote negatively on. I mean, it's not. I've never heard of that happening anywhere. So the next pieces, and I asked Bob to kind of talk about the EMP and the project list. So what happens to all that stuff, right? Where is that project list? The P3s that we've been talking about, philanthropy, et cetera. So let's talk about that a little bit, and then we can get to some other questions.
Sure. So, I mean, at the end of the day, that those items that are on the project list, and that grew out of updating the educational master plan, updating the facilities master plan, and then taking that facilities master plan and turning it into a list of projects that would help us realize the goals of the facilities master plan. And those projects are, they're still there, and they are still items that would make this a more welcoming learning environment for our students, how can we start to accomplish some of those, knowing that the total cost of that project list, which we have shared with you at previous meetings, is not funding that is going to be available to us overnight. So what do we do to start to accomplish some of what was on that project list to move forward with improving the learning environment in some of our buildings? So the first thing that you're going to see at the presentation for adoption of the 18-19 budget at the September board meeting is an itemization of what we will be doing with the scheduled maintenance money and with the technology refresh money that is set aside in the budget. So what projects will we be doing? Because we've been saying all along that we are able to maintain our buildings. The one thing that we would need a little additional, not a little additional money for, but additional money for would be to make significant improvements to those facilities. But there are things that we can do with the funds that we currently have available to increase and improve. And remember, we were never really looking at adding significant square footage to the campus. And so using those funds will assist us in inching toward the goals that were laid out in the project list. The other thing that we're looking at is conducting a full, robust space utilization review to see if there are, and we believe there are, some spaces here on campus that we could recapture, repurpose, or make better use of that would help us move forward. We've talked before about the fact that we were looking to hopefully achieve or receive some state funding to improve. We have a couple of buildings that would qualify for state funding, and we had actually included that in the overall pricing of that project list, and so we're still pursuing that. Obviously, the NVC Foundation is still pursuing funding for improvements and new facilities for the VWT program. And then finally, looking at ways that we can partner with either local businesses or with local entities to create facilities that would assist and be utilized by us, but could also be utilized by, as a public-private partnership, be utilized by both us and outside entities as well. You know, perhaps working with the city on ball fields, working with other agencies or other entities on funding or creating learning spaces for us that would also serve their needs as well. So we continue to review, and now that the faculty are back, we'll be devoting time at planning and budget committee meetings as well as facilities meetings to look at exploring those other options to move us forward on that project list.
And I think some of these are, it's interesting. I mean, that used to be a doorway there, right over there, which was a big storage room for the board items. And we had the need for another office space for the Napa Valley College Foundation, which was currently being housed in the Performing Arts Building in an empty faculty space or two, but we hired more faculty. So we're doing things like this. So this piece is well within, you know, the scope and structure of what we can do. So I guess incremental, small improvements is what we're looking at. You'll see and hear much more on this space utilization, which is a real thorough job at looking at every nook and cranny on the entire campus, including the first floor of this building and its usage. And how we can better utilize what we have, what we should do, what those increments might be. So that's the update. Here, let me give you a couple more things. So we're continuing these are the next steps. right, that you'll see coming up. We're continuing a task force in the community. I'm pulling together a more formal task force to some of the business leaders and educational leaders to continue the conversations in a more formal way. We're continuing our dialogue, not so much presentations, but doing listening sessions as well in the community and here on campus. These are now de rigueur, if you will be happening during each quarter and each semester. Space utilization plan we talked about. The district and campus's master plan, most of you board members had seen this back a couple years ago. It was a general description of mostly this main campus, and you might recall that it had different areas, area 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we talked about the development of those areas. That I hope to bring to you and to finish up this fall. That is primarily owned by the board, and I expressed this today to our constituencies. The land usage is your call from a policy side. The programmatic pieces, and if we institute buildings or certainly what happens in those becomes a shared governance issue. But you'll have some policy input and some strategic input, and I certainly want you involved in the front end of that campus master plan. And then we're going to reevaluate. Our next stop, I guess, would be the most natural is the 2020 presidential election. If I were to make a guess today, based on, and who knows in this political climate, I would expect there to be robust voter turnout. I don't know how to say that any different. I think it's going to be divisive, but not so much in California. This state tends to think generally along the same lines, but I would expect that if we don't get lost in the clutter, again, all the same kind of things, is poor little Napa's item going to get lost in a huge clutter of items coming up? But that will be our next opportunity. It's clear to me that the college will, at some point, need a facilities bond of some level for the infrastructure pieces that we just can't address. And that, who knows, we may, like some, Carnegie Mellon may will us $100 million and we're done. But I'm not holding my breath on any of those things. So that's it for now.
Thank you. Any
Thank you.
questions?
Yeah, so I had asked, and I know that the taxpayers had also asked to see the final results from the survey. And you had mentioned that wasn't part of the work product, but I'm just wondering, without having gotten final results, what data did we use, or did God be used to decide that now wasn't the time? Did the number, we had to have had some final results for the bonds, like how many people said they definitely yes would, yes probably, all that. We didn't see those.
No, we didn't. That was not part of the package. What they did was convey the confidence level in that measure of error, which is based on because our work product from them was the coherence factor. The instrument they use is, like I said last time, is primarily the same instrument that you have seen that was posted for so long. The only thing that changed was the amount on this one, which was $199 million, I think, and it didn't fall. There was no way. It could have either been under the 55, which is what he said, or over the 55. I'm not recommending. This is not strong enough. Right. Your numbers didn't change dramatically.
I guess what I'm saying is, like, we did it after the fires to see the difference, what happened with how many people would support it. And after the first bond, we had a breakdown like that where we said, what percent would voted definitely yes, and so forth. And how did we not have similar type of data to be able to draw the conclusion that there isn't the support?
This trailing survey poll wasn't intended to do that. It was intended to do other things.
Okay, and then my second question was, did they ask people why not? Because we've drawn conclusions that it was the fires and it was the political climate. So was that part of the survey? When people said they wouldn't support the bond, did they ask them why they wouldn't support the bond? That we're drawing those conclusions, that those are the reasons why?
I'm not privy to that, but I doubt if they asked that. Why would you not support the bond? Because they were really looking to just...
So we don't really know why people weren't supportive.
Yeah, I think, from what they conveyed to me was what I had said earlier. The environment, the economic environment was so unclear that people, although they answered, as you saw, in high alignment with the values of what we want to do, at the end of the day, the consultant felt that we weren't ready to go out to ask them for passage of it.
Because one thing I'd ask for is to see the actual survey questions, and I guess that wasn't part of the work product either, that we could actually see the survey questions, because I actually did get some feedback from the public, people I don't hear about the college from, several people that were upset by the poll because they said it was a push poll. And so I'm just wondering if maybe the poll itself could have been a factor in, turning people kind of negative towards the bond. So anyway, I guess I don't feel like from the second poll that we really got valuable information at the end of the day as far as, what data we used to make the decision. And then I don't really feel like we can deduce why people weren't supportive at the end of the day based on that survey. So, I don't know.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we will move on to first reading of board policies. And we only have a few here, but I think I have some comments on, but this wasn't, so the numbering is changed. It was 11.2, now it's 12.2, is that correct?
Yes, first reading board policies is now 12.2.
Okay, great. Then I have two speakers. James Hinton.
James Hinton, 3574 Hunter Circle, Napa, California. I want to encourage you to change the language so that it reflects that when there's a presentation, that you allow the presentation to happen, then you take the public comment. Then you do your thing and vote. Instead of public comment, presentation, you do your thing and vote. We should be allowed to view the presentation before we make our comments. That's how.
Can I clarify, James, is that BP 2350 that you're asking about? I'm sure it is, but I just want to clarify that with you.
So I just think it's better for the community as a whole, as they might already answer some of the questions sometimes. There'll be a photo or something. And I know we could all, like you've suggested before, I could always do the homework myself before I get here. But that takes a lot of time. And since I'm going to be here watching the presentation anyways with you, I might as well just watch it with you instead of me watching it twice. Instead of me watching at home and then come, oh, I've already watched this. It's like, since I'm here watching already, I don't really need to watch it at home first so I can make my comment first and then you watch it. It should just be like all the other government boards in the area. You show the presentation, you take public comment, and then it goes back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Orton.
We have 10 of these. Pass those out. I'm going to wait until you get this because I'm going to address what I'm passing out. I only have 10, so thanks, Eric.
Is there some for the public, or does the public have some?
No. If you'd like to provide those services, I'd get it in ahead of time.
Share a copy if that's appropriate.
It really just needs to go to the board. So does the board have enough copies? Everybody's got one? See if you get. Okay. Here's another one. Does anybody need it?
What I've handed you is one sentence out of BP 2350. It's the second paragraph, which is a sentence out of the current one, which is currently that all presentations relating to a matter on the agenda, including those on the consent agenda, shall be heard before a vote is called on the item. I think that's perfectly proper. What you're adding is, you're changing, you're striking out shall be heard before a vote is called on the item to shall be heard at the beginning of the agenda item before the board discussion, and then it goes on before a vote is called on the item. So there's a lot of confusion if you keep the last clause in there. Does that mean or? Just really unclear for one. But that's not my main objection. If you look at there is an AP actually on this, which is probably inappropriate for there to be an AP on a board matter, but nevertheless, I think it's reflective of a fairly fair way in which you've gone about this. And what the AP says is public comment may be accepted either before or after a presentation of information, which is what the first speaker talked about, but before the board deliberates or discusses the item. I think that's basically what you've done. It's fair, because many times there's nothing in the packet. Yeah, I remember one item where I had no clue. I put a slip in, but I had no clue. I would have put a slip in, but I didn't because I had no clue what it was going to be. We didn't get to see the PowerPoint presentation when we got here. Now, what could I possibly talk about before ever seeing the presentation? So I think you've kind of loosened up on that a little bit and used some common sense and said, yeah, if there's going to be a presentation, maybe we ought to listen to the presentation before you ask the public to comment. And I think the AP basically gives you that flexibility of the language in the AP. Now, that's not binding on this board, but I think that reflects a good policy. But actually, your current policy allows you to do the same thing. The current policy is, shall be heard before a vote is taken. And then you can use your good judgment during a meeting as to when you've heard enough public comment, and I'll give you another example where there's a problem that arises, and that's the determination, when does the board start to deliberate? So if you come here and you listen to the presentation and then you get up and, as a member of the public, make a comment, and then there's still more staff discussion after that, new facts come in, now your head's spinning as a member of the public. Well, oh, gee, if they'd addressed that the first time instead of answering questions after the public talks, I would have addressed that too. So, again, flexibility should be the watchword. In other words, if there's a lot of new information that comes into the staff after the public talks, you ought to be a little flexible in giving the public a little opportunity, if they're interested in making a comment. So keeping the current one would give you the flexibility to do those things. It wouldn't nail it down, it wouldn't cast it in concrete, but it would let you allow it to have some judgment. And you do need some judgment, because at some point you probably want to draw a line and say that's enough public discussion, let's deliberate, but try to limit the discussion from staff, because again, you're just provoking more new information that might come out. So my recommendation, and I would really urge you not to change the policy.
Thank you. Is that all public comment on this item? Okay. We will move to discuss these board policies. BP 2210 officers. Is there anything to discuss on this item? Oh, we need to first do a motion and a thank you.
Well, this is information item.
Right.
Oh, this is first reading. Sorry. Sorry.
Go take it back.
Take it back. All right. Any comment on BP 2210?
Yeah, I have two comments.
Okay.
So the first, there's a section for the board's secretary, and I guess I think I know what they mean by that, but a lot of times they call the college president the secretary of the board, but I think you mean in this context Catherine, is that correct? Would we do still mean you?
Yeah, the official secretary.
Okay, because it talks about things that I just don't see you doing, like,
Well, I guess what this policy, yes, it means that these are duties to ensure that they are done.
okay.
So this is not to be confused with a title, a job description of a secretary, but a secretary of more of a board secretary.
Right.
All right. Okay, so that was one clarification I had. And then the other one had to do with the list of the board chair's duties. And toward the bottom of page 1, it says one of the duties of the board is to seek legal advice. And then it says trustees who have legal questions should work through the CEO and board chair in seeking an answer. I think there's issues with that now, but also there could continue to be issues with that in future boards, where, we don't have our attorney present here at the meetings, and so when issues come up after a meeting, having to go through the board chair sometimes can be a barrier to the board getting legal advice, if the board chair says no. And the attorney doesn't work for the board chair, they work for the whole board. So I think there needs to be some kind of provision that if the board chair declines, that they will put it on the agenda so that the whole board can decide. There needs to be some caveat that it's not just the board chair that can prevent board members from getting legal answers to questions. There needs to be a way for the whole board to do that as well. So I wanted to suggest that in the one coming up for the second reading, that it state instead that trustees who have legal questions should work through the CEO and board chair in seeking an answer. And then a second sentence that says if the chair declines to seek an opinion, then it should be placed on the next agenda for the entire board to decide. And that way we can make a decision as a board.
Can I ask, how is that any different? I mean, if you were to ask the board chair or CEO to put something, or to get legal advice, they declined, couldn't you then just request to put it on the agenda?
Well, we've had a problem with that.
I don't recall that, but go ahead.
Well, we do, because when we just recently worked on the agenda policy, we decided that it doesn't automatically go on the agenda. It has to come up under future agenda items, and then we have to talk about it, and then a majority of the board has to decide. So this would be direct. It would be if the board chair says no, then on the next meeting, it automatically goes on the board for the entire board to decide whether or not to seek legal advice.
Okay, this comes right out of the trustee handbook. That much I know because I looked it up. I don't see how adding that is any different from existing. How we, it doesn't keep you from doing anything. So,
well, I've had problems just the last 2 times I've asked for legal advice, and both times, apparently, you didn't allow the attorney to respond to me because I got no response. And so there's an issue. And again, the attorney doesn't work for the board chair. They work for the entire board. And so we need a way for the whole board to
There
decide
has
that.
not been an incident where I told the attorney not to respond to you. I can guarantee you that. So please don't.
I can give an example from very recently, if you'd like.
So does anybody else think that needs to be added to it? I don't see a purpose, but if there's
I don't have a problem with it. I'm not so sure about the process, how it would work.
Yeah.
But in concept, I think there's nothing wrong with it.
The other idea I had, I don't care how we address it, I just want to address it. The other idea I had was maybe if 2 trustees agree that we need legal advice, then automatically there's legal advice. But there just needs to be a way so that one person cannot prevent board members from getting the legal answers that they need. So I don't really, I'm open to if people have other ideas, but all I know is that the current situation right now isn't working. And again, I think our job is also to create policy that will prevent problems in the future for future boards as well. and one person being the gatekeeper to the lawyer. It's not right, and it's not effective.
Well,
I don't see it as the
I
board
don't
chair
see-
being a gatekeeper to the attorney. I think
We have to go through them.
I don't see an issue with that. I mean, if I recall, I think when I first came on the board, you were actually seeking the attorney advice behind the board, and I think that's when I first remember this policy even coming up, because we had
No, this is-
trustees that were actually going around the board and just seeking attorney's advice without even going to the chair. So I don't.
This has always been the norm, whether it's been in policy or not. The problem is that, again, when the board chair doesn't give access to the attorney, they're not here, they don't know what's going on. If they were here, it wouldn't be a problem, but they aren't. So to have one person, again, when we're supposed to act as a whole board, make that decision, I don't think it's right. And right here in the policy, it's basically codifying this idea that one person can make a decision, and we're supposed to be acting as a whole board. So if anybody else has any ideas, I'm open to them, but I just think the current situation is not working, and we've had to go to and I'm going to be transparent that the most recent issue had to do with the agendas policy and all the discussion that we had during future agenda items and that process, and I couldn't get an answer about it, so the DA is actually looking into it. We can't use the DA's office as our backup when we can't get access to the attorney that's supposed to work for the board, and that's what's been happening.
So wait, are you saying that you weren't happy with the process, so then you went to the district attorney?
So I asked to have legal opinion on our new process of putting items on the agenda, and I asked for a legal opinion. I got no response, and I said I would turn it over to the district attorney's office if I couldn't get a response, and that's what I did, and so they're looking into it. They're open to doing that, but they, of course, feel that we should be using our own attorney, and when we don't have access to the attorney, we have no other recourse besides to go outside the system.
So let me just clarify something for the entire board. We had a training with our attorney, and one thing that our attorney clarified over and over again was no backtracking. And once the board has voted, which in this case, this entire board voted on something, okay? And when Trustee Martinson was not happy with the way the board voted, then she wanted legal opinion, which often happens, which to me is not transparent. It is like, as soon as this board meeting is over, then Trustee Martinson wants to rehash what just took place in the board meeting that Trustee Martinson wasn't happy with. And so I don't believe that's transparent. I don't believe something like that the board has already voted on should be rehashed behind the scenes, or that we need to go to further legal opinion. If Trustee Martinson wanted that, then she should have asked the board if the board felt there was legal opinion necessary, either in that meeting or in a following meeting. But we can't just, all the board vote on something, then a trustee wants to rehash it, wants legal opinion over it, and our legal bills all ready for this year for board issues. It gets out of hand if we can't somehow agree on how this should be handled. So no, I did not say that a board member could not have access to the attorney, but that we already voted on that, and this board made a decision. So I am going to ask the board at this point to either give me consensus on adding that language or not adding that language, and we move on.
You just emphasized right there why we need this, because you did make a decision that the board had acted, therefore we didn't need to go back and revisit it, but I expressed a concern about the legality of it during the meeting. We did act, but we also said that we would use our attorney to, after the meetings, if we had legal questions. That's what we said, that in the absence of her being here, that if after the meeting legal questions came up, we would use our attorney. And I asked to have that reviewed.
And my response.
And you've decided it's too expensive, so you made up that decision on your own.
And my response, Trustee Martinson, was, please request to put it on the agenda, and you did not.
No, you did not say that.
Yes, I did. It's in an email. I said, please request to put it on the agenda because I do not believe in rehashing.
Put the same item on the
board
agenda that
stuff.
we just passed, that would be rehashing. We already passed it. But I wanted a legal opinion to make sure that it was legal, that process. There's no reason to put it back on the agenda.
And then
The board voted on it.
But putting it back on the agenda would be, not the item, would be whether or not to request legal review. Okay? And I asked you to request that, and you didn't do it. I heard nothing. So
that hasn't been our process.
So let's just.
It's been ask the board chair, and then you say yes or no, and I just got nothing.
No, I responded to you, and I said that this was not a transparent way to do business.
Okay, so basically you're saying that should be the way it is. If the board chair declines, then you bring it onto the agenda. That's what I am asking for in the policy. The board chair declines, then it comes forward on the agenda for the whole board to decide.
Then just as I asked you, which was, well, then request it on the agenda.
Exactly. So that's what I'd like to put in the policy, that when the board chair
You
declines,
can already do that.
then it goes on the agenda.
Okay.
For the board to decide.
Let's get a consensus board on, Raphael, do you think that language needs to be added?
I don't.
Segura? No. Iverson?
No.
Husefa Kawaja?
I don't think so.
Baldini? Baker? Mancuso? No. So it stays.
These are first readings.
Well,
We're just giving input right now, right?
Just giving input, so it doesn't appear the rest of the board feels that that's necessary.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other question or any other input on this particular one? If not, we'll recommend that the staff bring it back to us for a second reading, as is. All right, thank you. Yeah, the next item is BP 2350 speakers. And any comments on this? I do, so I do like the idea of kind of keeping some flexibility to say, but I guess I don't know if that necessarily keeps us at the beginning. And Catherine, let me ask you if this is a policy analyst request?
It was a recommendation. I don't think it was legally advised, or it wasn't legally required, but they just recommended that we state when we'd like public comment.
So I do agree that, for me, I do agree that maybe it does limit some flexibility. What does anybody else?
I think it does too.
You too.
Why not just strike at the beginning of the agenda item and just have before board deliberation and before a vote is called?
So leave it as is, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, you could still keep before, because this is all new, right? So you could just keep it the way it is, or if you wanted to, you could clarify before board deliberation and before a vote is called on the item, or just leave it the way it is.
Well, it does say before board discussion, which is good. I mean, that piece can be left in.
I think deliberation's a better term. Because discussion is kind of that back and forth when we're asking questions and clarifying and so forth. But deliberation is like we're really weighing in on our final choice.
Okay. So how should it, so let's oral presentations relating to a matter on the agenda, including those on the consent agenda, shall be heard before board deliberation, before a vote is called on the item.
I think we need an and in there.
And before a vote is called on the item. Does that sound?
Well, I think,
Does that make sense?
to Mr. Orton's point, if I can, yeah, I mean, when I'm thinking about it, that means it feels flexible to me. The word changing discussion to deliberation. Deliberation is a whole nother, you've heard discussion, that's what it kind of means to me. I don't know if there's an AP behind this, but we probably don't need one, I wouldn't think, but
Right.
that does give you more. We'll try it, we'll bring it back, with a couple versions like that for you to look at.
I guess I'm a little confused by the discussion about discussion versus deliberation. It sounds to me like we're saying, oh, we're going to have discussion, we're going to let the public speak. Like we're creating a number of times for the public to speak, which I think just going to create chaos.
Yeah, right.
I don't think that was the intent.
So I think it's kind of just switching words. I mean, I think it's just wordsmithing, right?
It's more formal deliberation.
I like having the
Do
flexibility,
we
and I
even
would
need
just
that clause in there at all? I mean, wasn't it fine before?
Yeah. I'm fine with leaving it the way it was before. It seems like it was just kind of stuck in there.
Well, I think that, well, the policy analyst made the suggestions. The only thing that I would say is that before a vote is called, then leaves it open to the public speaking during board discussion. So I do think adding before board discussion, right?
I think the thing about discussion versus deliberation, because the discussion could be the kind of the clarifying question and all of that, I think to Mr. Orton's point was maybe at that point there would be some clarifying information that they would want to speak one more time, but then once we say, okay, now we're deliberating, there's a distinction drawn. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of don't think there should be a distinction between those two. Once the public comment period is over, either before or after a presentation, then it's board time. So, Raphael, what were you thinking on your comment between those two words?
I just see a huge problem here. I mean, we're not even sticking to our policies now. I mean, we had a speaker today speak about an agenda item during public comment and the agenda item, and this, what everybody's discussing now, it's like we're going to have yet another opportunity for them to jump in. So I think there should be one time, and I think Mr. Ortman was talking about presentations that are made to the board. So if we have an agenda item with a presentation, that the public can speak after that before the board deliberates. And it's good for the public to hear or the board to hear what the public has to say. I think that's great. But it sounds like everybody's talking about that happening, then discussion by the board, then the public comes back, and then deliberation?
No.
Does staff get what we're
No, so
hinting at, though?
what verbiage are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that, well, let's see, and maybe Ron and the staff can come back with that, but we should have the flexibility to let the public speak after presentations that are made to the board. I think that's what I'm thinking.
But before the board.
Before the board
Right.
deliberates and votes.
Okay.
Let us beat this up. The most cogent argument on this, I think, is if staff is working on a presentation, and sometimes it doesn't happen until after the agenda's out, you really, it's really tough to comment. And, and sometimes we just can't prepare those. So I think I know what you're meaning, not the back and forth. And we certainly don't want to set up a situation where the board is in debating with a public speaker. Because they're not part of the board. They're here to view the board's business and inform the board of other stuff, but not participate. They're not participants in your board meeting. They're participants for information.
I think it almost doesn't matter if you call it board discussion or board deliberation, because in the end, it's going to be how the chair manages the meeting. that they cut off public comment at a certain point, and that now and clarifies that now it's time for the board to discuss or deliberate, whatever you want to call it. I just think deliberation sounds better, but.
So the staff will come back with.
Well, we get
you get the
we need
the
we need
gist.
Yeah.
It's not good as is. Yeah.
Yeah.
we get-
Okay.
All right. So
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Before we close
Yes.
on this, I understand that flexibility in most cases can be good, but is there a reason why we wouldn't want to just have the procedure be, we open the item, there's a presentation, if there is one, then there's public comment is closed, and then the board discusses? I don't understand why you would want to have to make that decision on every single option.
If there's a staff presentation, it should come before.
If there's a presentation.
I don't know, but I think just leaving it optional, leaving it flexible.
Maybe if there are people that
don't-
want to comment, I don't know. It just seems.
I agree in the sense that that should be the flow. There's not always a presentation, but if there is, it should always come first, then the public comments, then the board deliberates.
Because
and we know
sometimes
that's going to happen.
questions that are asked by people in the public are answered in the presentation, or would be. And so they could save their breath.
Yeah, I think it would be good to clarify that as well, the flow.
We'll come back.
Yeah. I had one more thing for this policy. So this one clarified the time limit for the speakers, but it didn't mention, and I know that it should, from our discussion from the last policy, that people needing translation should have twice the amount of time, and I think that should be inserted into the policy. So it says each speaker will be allowed a maximum of 5 minutes per topic. I think right there it should clarify to the public that those needing translation have twice the amount of time, 10 minutes.
It is in the agenda.
Right, I think it should be in the policy. The time limits in the policy, don't we want our constituents to know what the rules are? If they go to the policies, they should know that that is the rule. And why wouldn't we have it there?
I thought it was. Catherine, do you, any comment on that?
Yeah, we had discussed that, and we noticed that it wasn't in here. It's not a harmful thing to do. We just need to get the language down that is more specific, that clarifies what you want. And then, to a point earlier from the board or in discussion on this, as you work through these BPs, then the APs that are underlying these, the existing APs, will be changed to reflect what your desire here. So some of those are out of alignment right now, but you have to do this hard work here on the policies before we can really work on the APs, the underlying APs. So we've got 2 notations on this, and we discussed this. So.
Okay. Is that everything on that? I think staff knows where we want to go with that. So let's go to BP 2365. Or, is that right? Yes. Comments? Any comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll recommend staff move forward with that as for the second reading. And is there any reason we need to discuss this AP? No. Okay. All right, great. So we move on from that item. And we go on to the consent calendar.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think we're voting. Are we voting?
If it's by consensus, I'll just note.
Yes, by
Okay.
consensus.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Abstain? All right, motion passes. And we had Baldini made the motion. Did you get that? Okay. Okay, great. Consent calendar is passed. Now we move on to action items, which is teeny tiny. We have ratify financial documents.
Move for approval.
Second.
Iverson Segura. Are we voting electronic?
don't see it on mine.
Okay, here comes.
Okay.
Okay. And Trustee Kawaja?
Yeah. I'm in the system.
Oh, you are
Yeah,
now?
I am in the system.
We've put them in the system. We're trying it out, seeing how that works.
Oh, awesome. Yay. You're real.
That's a yes for me.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's unanimous.
All right, thank you. And then we've got 14.2, second reading on board policies. Do I see a motion?
So
Move to
moved.
approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got Kawaja made the motion and Baldini second. Any comments on 2610? There were no comments during the first reading. Conflict of interest, BP 2710, no comments during the first reading. 2716, political activity, there were no comments during the first reading. And BP 2750, no, there were no comments in the first reading. Any discussion at all? No? Okay.
I've opened online voting.
All right.
Thank you. That passes unanimously.
Thank you. And look where we are. Board reports. What? Somebody being a wise guy over there. Okay, standing committees. Des, Trustee Segura.
We haven't met. I mean, since last meeting, we haven't met.
Okay. VWT or VWF.
No meeting. We have one scheduled for the 21st.
And Legislative Affairs Committee, the legislators have been out of session, so we will probably be convening soon. Okay, will do. Audit and Finance, I think there's something scheduled, or?
We have a meeting Thursday, September 6th at 4 p.m.
All right. And Real Property Management Committee, Baldini.
No meeting scheduled.
Can we schedule one?
Yes. We could schedule a meeting. I'll leave that to.
All right. Seems like there's a lot to talk about these days.
Yes.
And we know that McPherson is done in success and over. Yes, sir.
So there is still Manveer in 3 and 4, just to bring it to your attention.
So Catherine, can you please put Kawaja in place of Sandhu?
Okay, I thought I had changed that.
Thank you.
Sorry.
And we will keep you apprised as those meetings take place. We'll on legislative affairs, I know we'll definitely reach out and get consensus, that everybody can make it at a certain time and date and all that.
Thank you.
With school starting. Okay. And trustee and board chair reports, there's something, the AP, okay. Okay, so let's just start. Would you like to start for us, Hussefa?
Absolutely.
And I think that Hussefa, being a student here, would like to just give you a little start on you and what you're doing, as it is a board activity.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
So my trustee report is small, tiny. So I just recently joined a hiring committee for the secretary of MESA. Then I attended an NKIS meeting on July 24th. I think it's really important that we, being a student, let's not forget that these are enrolled students, so they're literally part of this society, and they're part of our community, part of the college, and we must endorse that. And I think it was worthwhile the time. Then we had, just like Raphael said, we had our NVC leadership retreat. 3 days, Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday. Then for tomorrow, I am leaving for the trustee workshop, student trustee workshop, where there will be all the student trustees across the state, and we'll be working on policies. I wish I had that before I started my term, but that's fine with me. Then we have I have first day of school as soon as I come back on Sunday, August 13th. Then the first and second day we have our welcome back tables. Once again, we invite all the board members to come, whoever can come according to the schedules. We have welcome back tables. Just as President Marianne said that, just to give a little input about, that there's a student sitting on the board, just to give you a little info about myself, because I didn't have a chance to meet all of you one by one. So this is, I think, a good place to let you know. So I came to the United States 2016 as an immigrant, and by late 2017, I did join the Napa Valley College School, Napa Valley College, Community College. It was a new start, new system, everything was new. But I think I just phased into it, and with, with great help, great teachers, great peers, I think I phased in it easily. And then because whenever I join a school or a college, I always look for student government. And I look for student government, and I always choose the position where my heart starts pumping faster. So I chose the student trustee position because I knew it was a big responsibility, and I was ready to take it on, face front. And I thought it was a really important position for someone as a student to represent the students and their interest and ideas, and you have to go fully on representing the students. So this was a big bit of my back info, so that will be all. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Trustee Baldini.
Yes. I was very happy to attend, however briefly, this morning's Flex Day, and it did allow food and breakfast during the engaging conversations. I was wondering if Table 8 ever filled up, but a little bit? All right. So, but thank you again. The other thing, and I want to call this board research because I want to respond to something that we've already voted on. It's not going to change it, but in board research, as a trustee, in my comment about taxing a growth industry, it just makes more sense, and to make it not a hidden tax. So electric cars, an example, $5 million in 2030 is Governor Brown's plan. If we took a $300 registration fee, that's $1.5 billion. When our gas fossil fuel production, I absolutely believe in alternatives to burning fossil fuels, our fossil fuel production will be much, much less. And so our money to education is almost non-existent as fossil fuels disappear with a hidden tax like that. And if you look at Chevron's quarterly results, second quarter, $3.4 billion in profits. Shell Oil, $10.1 billion in corporate profits, second quarter this year. Apple, third quarter, $53 billion. And that's what I mean. You're looking at a bigger piece of the apple. So if we sell a gallon of gas, and which we know we're buying it as a consumer, and we're supporting education, and you put 1 cent, in 2015, this state consumed 15.1 billion gallons of gasoline. You put a 1 penny tax on that, and that's a heck of a lot of money, rather than hiding it someplace. And it's visible. So that concludes my report. I hope it clarifies my my earlier statements. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Baker.
Well, I went to the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Gala, which was nice. And I also went at the Flex Day and Table 12. We didn't do so hot but we got one right. We were very pleased with ourselves. So, and nobody else wanted to play with the pipe cleaner, so I got to make a really fun unicorn horn that I took home to my 8-year-old and took home an atomic fireball to my 12-year-old, who I think is still suffering. That's all.
Trustee Martinson.
I attended the Latino leader roundtable meeting, and it's not really related to the college, except for I was just impressed with what college employees and students there were. I mean, we definitely were very well represented at that meeting. So yeah, and it was very informative, and plan to go again. That's it.
Trustee Rios.
Just one item, and does relate to the college, in that we had our annual Damian Maldonado Foundation fundraiser last week and handed out a number of scholarships, and I think about half of the students are coming here to Napa Valley College. So that was it was great to see, and the students that are excited about coming here. So that was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Sakura.
I also attended the recognition of the Napa Valley College at the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce gala. It was pretty cool. And went to Mike Thompson's fundraiser, the pasta dinner. That was cool, just to hear what's going on in the state of the country. And yes, that's it.
All right, Trustee Iverson.
So I attended the Hispanic Chamber dinner. It was really nice to see President Kraft get his award. I also, piggybacking on your comment, there's a gentleman in the community, Gopal Shankar, and I don't know, some people may have heard of him, but he is single-handedly taking on this effort on reducing the carbon footprint, our reliance on fossil fuels. He's pushing for energy-efficient cars, and he just wants to focus on our local Napa Valley here. And he would be interested in coming and speaking to the college at any point. And I think he actually has reached out to Catherine. So it might be nice to see what we're doing here in the community. And that's my report.
All right, thank you. I have just a couple of quick little items. We had, of course, National Night Out was Tuesday. Today's Thursday, Tuesday. And in American Canyon, it's great because they organize, different people will host them on various streets throughout the whole city. And so I popped around to some of the events, and it was, I don't know if it was amazing or if it was just confirming, but I ran into so many people who said, I graduated from Napa Valley College, or I'm currently a student at Napa Valley College, or I had Diana Chibodi in child development, and it was just, I can't even tell you, one particular ice cream social that this couple was having at in front of their house. I think every single person I spoke to had some connection. There was a husband and wife, and one of them went through our Psych Tech program, and the other one was the one I mentioned that went through the Child Development program. Another one that was a current student. It was just so incredible. The connection with American Canyon and this college it's almost like it's the whole city has some type of real deep, either current or past roots. So it was great being out there and talking to people and just sort of confirming how great we really are. And everybody that, said that, they didn't say, oh, I went to Napa Valley College. It was, oh, I went there. It was great. It was the greatest program, and it was nice. And then the other thing that I did was yesterday had an executive committee meeting for the Workforce Alliance of the North Bay, and a couple of things that we talked about was the career centers, and I don't know exactly how we're partnering on some of these efforts, but the Workforce Board is going to now have career centers out at the high schools, and we're also going to have a bus. Do you know about the bus? So we're going to have a career center bus that is going to be all branded and everything, and so we'll go. Like right now, we plan on heading to some of the fire areas like Mendocino, which is part of our board, and finding out what kind of help people need there. So really, really excited about I just feel like things are really happening there and very positive and definitely in connection with all the work that we do here. And today I went to, one more thing, because it's connected to that as well, the Career Center. I went to this grid meeting in American Canyon, which is all of the Green Island Road industry park businesses. I know Ron's gone to it a few times. And there was a woman from from NCOE. She works for Barbara. And she's also working with the high schools in 2 different programs. And I wondered how maybe they connect it to like Talent Search or something, because they're also working with like 8th graders in a program called Inspire. So this is one of the reasons I wanted to be on the Workforce Board, and this board is to maybe help being out there and being in different places, that everybody is talking to each other about what's happening and not duplicating each other's efforts. So I thought that might be something that Oscar's team may want to explore and find out exactly what's happening over there and how we can connect with it. That's it. Okay. Future agenda items. Is that in the wrong place? Nope. Oh, okay. I thought we were putting it after standing, but before board. Didn't we? No? Okay. My imagination then. Okay. Future agenda items. What do we have? Anything? Has everybody looked at the log and any changes or questions or anything there? I'm getting blank faces. Okay.
Is this your fields?
Your fields of dreams.
We would thought, Bob and I are coming in, and this will happen in 2 versions. I think one is September, when we start talking about the district and campus master plans. And so the fields will be more of a holistic piece of that, so we'll be able to address at least pieces of it and then get more clarification. Does that work? Okay. Also, I think in the and probably the college, probably utilization it'll probably come up. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Is there any reason to continue into closed session? I didn't think so. And our next regular meeting is on September 13th, 2018. Ready? Meeting adjourned at 9:05.